Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, and welcome back to Bible Book by Book, Episode 4 Marital Issues Abound. This is the introduction to quite possibly my two least favorite characters that we have run into in our quest to read through this entire book so far. So just get ready for that because you're going to see why in just a moment. Full disclosure, YouTube has been throttling the fuck out of my channel lately. Um, they have not been sending out notifications to subscribers, which is probably why we're experiencing such a low turnout as of right now. In fact, I would wager a guess that anybody who is actually watching this stream right now probably saw the link that I put it on Discord, and there's nothing on YouTube, nothing at all. Actually, hold on, let me check my phone. Yeah, they did not send out a notification. So, full disclosure, if we just don't get very much of an audience turning up real soon, then I'm possibly just going to reschedule this. I've already reached out to YouTube's help team in regards to the notifications not going out to subscribers because a lot of you have expressed to me that this platform has been terrible about sending out notifications to you guys. Particularly, I had one comment saying, like, he would not get notifications for new videos like a week and a half after it was already posted, if at all, which seems to be the case with a lot of you guys. Like I said, I did reach out to YouTube about this, and predictably, they are about as helpful as a fucking screen door on a submarine. So let me go ahead here and I'll show the fucking email that they sent me. Very I don't know how to say it's condescending, I guess, sort of wording. Very corporate, very soulless. I would not be surprised if this was generated by some sort of bot, especially since they repeated their same point like 3 times in the same body of the paragraph. But uh, in any case, first off, I'd like to apologize for not responding sooner. Subscriptions are an important feature on YouTube. Fuck my life. So I'll do my best to provide the details here. It's very rare. We very rarely encounter an issue within our system that causes delays in the delivery of updates into the subscriptions feed. We have monitoring in place to catch issues like this, and our team continues to make additional improvements to make them even less frequent. But when they do occur, it can result in videos appearing in the subscriptions feed after a delay. So basically, they're saying, like, what you're encountering is a very rare issue. I don't believe that you're actually encountering this issue. We do know that this has happened before on occasion, but we're just not going to do anything about it. If you're seeing a large number of complaints from your audience about missing video updates in the subscription feed, please share the following information with us, and we'll pass it on to the product team to investigate further. At least one example of a video URL that wasn't delivered to a user's subscriber feed. How the fuck am I supposed to know that? I don't I can't like go through your guys' fucking channels and see what videos you actually get a notification for. So I can't specifically pinpoint anything. I can tell you that the Dogda video that I posted last week has been doing fucking ass in terms of audience engagements. That video is such a fucking goddamn embarrassment. Not on my part. I think it's probably the best work that I've ever done. The issue is nobody fucking watches it. It's sitting at like 400 views right now. That is fucking pathetic. That's not even a tenth of my audience. Not even to mention the fact that I should, in theory, be getting a lot more views from people who just get recommended the fucking video, but it's not being shipped out. And I also complained to them about that. They didn't even address that part. Here are some tips that can help in the meantime. Suggest that your audience opt in to all notifications for their channel so they never miss an update! Exclamation points. They can choose to receive notifications as mobile push notification or as an email or blah, 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 blah. I've said this before, and I've said it again, but the fact of the matter is, I'm not your mother. I can't force anybody to turn on notifications for this channel. Especially not all notifications, because I understand that could be kind of annoying, especially if you're dealing with like a channel that like uploads like twice daily. I upload a video proper maybe once a month. So encourage your audience to file a feedback report. I already did that. I don't know if anybody has been doing that, but yeah, if you guys are just as pissed about this whole situation as I am, definitely go ahead and email YouTube and let them know that their system is super fucky. If your viewers aren't receiving notifications, start by sending them this troubleshooter. Below are the most common reasons that viewers don't receive notifications. Okay, first of all, start by sending them this troubleshooter. So if I just fucking click this link and tried to send it out to my wider YouTube audience, really the only people who are even going to have a snowball's chance in hell of seeing it are the people who are already on my Discord, because you won't send notifications out. So if I make a fucking community post, nobody's going to see it anyway. How the hell are you even supposed to see the fucking link? Their bell icon is set to personalized rather than all notifications. This resets if they unsubscribe and resubscribe. I don't know if anybody who's been doing that, but make up your goddamn mind. Blah, 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 blah. There are two other reasons viewers may not be receiving notifications. Oh, wait. Hold on. Let me go back here really quick. They aren't logged in. So the people who left me a comment saying that they can't see my shit or any of the notifications that are going out are not logged in. They're using, I don't know, some sort of fucking voodoo magic where they can post a message without having an actual YouTube account. Brilliant, YouTube. You're Godspeed. You are just the salt of the fucking earth. Two other reasons viewers may not be receiving notifications. They have already received the maximum number of notifications for your channel for that day. Viewers can get a maximum of 3 notifications within a 24-hour period. Dude, I don't even know what to fucking say about this. Like, man, you're lucky if you get 2 videos a fucking month out of me, including live streams. Like, that's absolutely not the issue. And like I said, I think this is all just like AI generated. There's no way that somebody actually looked through my channel and all of, because I sent them screenshots and everything about just the poor turnover for video views and subscriber complaints and things like that. They have not addressed any of it. You know, they're asking for proof of this sort of stuff. I've already sent them this stuff. They are just being willfully ignorant of this issue. Yeah, and then they say the rare, quote unquote, system delay. Very rarely we encounter an issue with our system that can cause substantial delays in delivery of notifications. We have monitoring in place to catch issues like this, and our team continues to make additional improvements to make them even less frequent. No, you're not. No, you are fucking not. Just apparent by the fact that you even sent me this fucking email just shows that you really do not fucking care. Oh, hey, we actually got some people showing up. They're very good. Ryan, what happened? Just join. I'm just bitching and complaining really about YouTube being really fucking shitty. With regards to sending out notifications. Turish saying, yeah, he didn't get the notification for the dog to video either. I will say I did get the notification for my own video, but that is because I actually went to the Premiere page and I actually had to turn on the individual bell icon for the video itself. So when it did go up, I did get a notification for it. That doesn't help you guys unless you know that a video is coming. You don't know that a video is coming unless you get the notifications in the first place. So, the end of the Bible get an update. You know what? Honestly, I am an advocate for somebody somewhere down the line, just like fucking taking the Bible and just being like, this is the New Testament. You ever hear of something called the Holocaust? Let me tell you all about that. No, honestly though, I don't understand. Like, that's like probably the most significant thing that happened to the Jewish people in the history of ever. And for some reason, nobody has actually done like a Bible update on it. Although, you know, that's probably a slippery slope, because then, you know, you probably get somebody getting really autistic with it, and, you know, they start writing like, QAnon is bullying me or something like that. And then people like 30 years down the line are going to be like, what the fuck is he talking about? I don't understand this reference. K9 of K, or K9 the 15th. Have you been updating your number at the end, by the way? I could have swore that it was the 14th a little while. Anyway, it's pathetic on YouTube's part that they need to add a second button that doesn't even work half the time. Yes. This is something that a lot of people were complaining about. I think even like Moist Critical back in the day when YouTube first implemented that policy change, he's like, he was saying like, you know, it's part of like our everyday lingo to understand the word subscribe. You know, if you talk to your friend in a enclosed space, you know, and you say, hey, are you subscribed to this channel? They understand what that means. But, you know, if you say, hey, are you rung to that channel? They're going to be like, what the fuck are you? What kind of LSD are you on? I just got here and I can tell that YouTube is being a bitch again. You are absolutely right about that. Messiah, hello, Sir Adamantine. Sir Adamantine with a exclamation point. Also, Turish with an exclamation point for acknowledging Addy with an exclamation point. I don't know. I think whoever runs YouTube is selfish. I think whoever runs YouTube is a fucking commie. But I mean, they're kind of the same thing. Let's see here. Hey man, what's up? This live stream is the first notification I got for your channel, even though I'm turned on the bell. If I wasn't in your Discord, I wouldn't even know about any of your previous uploads. Yes, that is exactly what I have just been fucking complaining about this entire time. Was like, if you guys really want to stay up to date on the channel, I think the link is in the description to this live stream. Go ahead and join the Discord. That's the only way that I know that you are going to be able to see whenever I go live or upload a video or anything like that. Just make sure you do that, just in case YouTube decides to be a bitch again. It's official. Hitler runs YouTube. Nah, yeah, the 100 and how old would Hitler be by this point? 100 and like 110 something, maybe into his 120s. Honestly, he's running YouTube through his underground bunker in Argentina with all his fucking femboys around him. um, Turish, as somebody who uses YouTube for more than TV or any other social media platforms, YouTube is a massive pile of Yahoo spaghetti code. Yeah, yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that regard. Just so you guys know, Turish is our like resident IT guy for the channel. Like he's incredibly brilliant when it comes to like things with computers. I meant to ask, do you still have that bot going that like downloads all my videos whenever they go live? Just for preservation's sake, because I think you mentioned something about that to me before. And thank you, by the way, for launching that. I really do appreciate that. And now we're losing viewers. Well, supposedly losing viewers, because honestly, StreamYard can tell me one thing, and then I can check over onto YouTube, and I can get a completely different viewer count. So I'm just going to assume that there are a hell of a lot more than 4 people actually watching this at any one time. Like Stalin or Chairman Mao running YouTube, it's strict and works like it has a couple of extra chromosomes. I think I think my favorite insult that I've ever heard from a green tech story was I could climb a ladder with the number of extra chromosomes he has and jump down to the level of his IQ and kill myself. I I don't know. I just think that's super funny, and it's so applicable to so many different fucking people. Particularly YouTube. YouTube is run like fucking dog shit. If there was a better alternative, I absolutely would be switching over. Isaac Browning again. I never get notified by YouTube about your uploads. If I wasn't in Discord, I'd be in the dark. Yeah, there you go. Like I said, guys, the only way that they're going to take me seriously, and they probably still won't even take me seriously, even if you do this, but I would just try it out anyway, is to email YouTube help and support, tell them that you've got the bell notification turned on and all that. You never ever get notifications from my channel. This is a relatively, I wouldn't even say a small channel. Like very few channels get to the number that I'm at, which I'm very grateful for. But even still, just email them, let them know that their notification system is broken. Maybe they'll fix it, and maybe they almost certainly won't. Crazy Human, I feel like we need a YouTube alternative. Yes. Honestly, the problem with that is, and I know there have been so many people who autistically screech about this, but it is absolutely the truth. YouTube has a monopoly on video sharing platforms. And you're going to have somebody say, "Oh, Messiah, Vimeo exists. Fucking Live Leak exists." I guess if you want to repost the fucking Mr. Hands video, yeah. No, like honestly, like the only time anybody goes on Live Leak or any one of those websites is when there is a video that YouTube does not allow to be posted. but it gains YouTube infamy, I guess. Like, I guess a good example of that would be like the Ronnie McNutt video. That guy who like fucking killed himself on a Facebook live stream. Everywhere people would be talking about it on YouTube, they just couldn't show the damn thing. So you actually had to go out of your way to try and find that. Okay. Honestly, you just pop into my feed. Just subscribe today to. By the way, thank you, Justin. Just pops up for me. Uh, honestly, dude, just stay subscribed for a little while. Wait for like the next upload. I should have a video proper going up. July 15th at the very latest. Should be my next upload. Get back to me if YouTube actually bothers to send you a notification. Turish says, Rumble appears to be the most promising at the moment, but I don't trust any platform not to rest on their laurels and improve over time. Honestly, yes. So I have been hearing the same thing. Like, Rumble is probably the best YouTube alternative. There you actually can post whatever the hell you want, and YouTube isn't going to be super bitchy about it. Like, I mean, if you have like a dissenting sort of political opinion or whatever, you can see videos on that. Anything of the sorts, you post it on Rumble, you're not going to get taken down, which I do appreciate a lot, as somebody who advocates for free speech. But oh, really? I did not know about this. Live Leak was shut down in 2021. The developers tried to make something else. Well, what the fuck? Where the hell am I supposed to find the Mr. Hands video again? Guys, don't look up the Mr. Hands video, honestly. Just a little bit of free advice. It's not very graphic, but it's it's a... I don't even know if I should bother explaining the story of that video, because we're already like 22 minutes in, and we actually have 6 chapters of the Bible to cover today. So, very quickly, Crazy Human says, you should do voice acting now. I mean, technically, that's what I'm doing right now. I mean, I'm giving a voice to the fucking Homer statue avatar with the Iranian headscarf around it, but I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea. I mean, I would just more or less be like, I don't really want to make a fucking like portfolio or anything like that just to send out to people. So, I got new recommendations a few months ago. Honestly, it's the first time I got genuine suggestions outside of my wheelhouse in over 5 years. Are you referring to just like YouTube, like actually publishing out like recommendations for like new channels for you, or I don't know what you mean by that, but I will agree YouTube is absolutely terrible about. So something that I've noticed recently, just a weird quirk of the algorithm, is that YouTube will send me notifications that like channels with like sometimes no subscribers or like subscribers in like the single digits uploaded like some sort of like video. It's usually music. It's usually like very underground sort of like EDM music sort of thing. Which is fine. You know, I'm glad that, you know, YouTube will actually fucking send out the notification for that stuff. But at the same time, it's like, how often does my channel get recommended to strangers? Dude, I tried to watch a fan-made Sabaton music video. I'm not entirely sure what that is. It had 4 or 5 fucking warnings before playing the damn thing. I'm not even... Not even fake cinematic gore is allowed. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's fucking ridiculous. It- At at this point, though, like YouTube is a platform which it's trying so hard to be TV, and at the same time they're trying to sanitize the hell out of their platform so that it's even more quote unquote family friendly than TV. It just needs to fucking stop. It needs to stop. YouTube Kids is a thing that fucking exists. There needs to be some sort of like protections to keep people who are not within the proper age demographic off of fucking YouTube. I mean, what really should happen is that parents shouldn't be giving their fucking 8-year-olds their goddamn phones every time they ask. Or heaven forbid, a 10-year-old should not have their own smart device, period. I didn't get my first fucking cell phone until I was 13. I couldn't even get on the internet with that goddamn thing. I had to fucking upload minutes to it, and never heard me fucking complaining. Uh okay, so we've wasted enough time. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get into the actual Bible book by book study. Let me go ahead here and present the screen. Where the fuck are you? There you are. Let me pop in here just to make sure we get the ticker going. There we go. All right, so today we are going to be covering Genesis chapter 12 all the way until Genesis chapter 17. The reason for this is because there is very little actually really that I have notes on to go over. So we should be able to speed through this fairly quickly. So without any further ado, let's begin with Genesis chapter 12. For those of you who are just tuning in from last or didn't see last episode or the conclusion of that, basically they did some more genealogy after Genesis 11, the chapter that should have fucking ended with the Tower of Babel, and now Abram is a thing. So there you go. That's basically where we're at. So Genesis chapter 12 verse 1. Now Jehovah said unto Abram, Get thee thy hell out of Dodge, and flee from thy kindred, and from thy father's house unto the land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and be thou a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and him that curseth thee I will curse. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So Abram went, as Jehovah had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Just a very quick update to the timeline. We are now, by my estimations, 3,010 years after creation, which means that the young Earth creationist model already doesn't work because they profess that the Earth is only about 6,000 years old. If we're already in the present day, I guess I should clarify. So Jesus was obviously 2,000 years ago, and it's pretty much universally recognized that the King David was about 1,000 years before Jesus. If we were to accept that the Earth is only about 6,000 years old, then we should already be moving on to Samuel 1 by now, but obviously we're nowhere near that. I mean, we're not even up to fucking Joshua yet. So unless they've updated that, and I just wasn't notified of it because fucking YouTube, I guess. Uh, their math is a little bit wrong. Read your fucking book. Genesis 12:5. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, that means they bought slaves, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came. Let me scroll down here a little bit. It's still touchy as ever. Woo. Yep, see. And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the oak of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. Obviously, that's what the land of the Canaans means. And Jehovah appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed I will give this land. And there builded he an altar unto Jehovah, who appeared unto him. So I very quickly want to address that obviously this was written by Jay, the biblical author by this point. But I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. This really doesn't come about until 17:1, which is way ahead, where the story gets needlessly recapped, but instead Jehovah in this case, who is really who is really known as Jehovah in that context, because that's really the only Hebrew name that Jay knew him by. We're to assume that this figure is one and the same as Yahweh and Elohim, except looking a little bit ahead again, this God introduces himself to Abram as El Shaddai, or El of the Mountain, which is traditionally a name ascribed to the chief Canaanite god El, who would have been well known to Abram at this time, as the Bible goes through great lengths in the previous passages to tell us that this land is inhabited by the Canaanites, as you just saw. Further supporting this, we have the notion that this God appears to Abram in a completely different mannerism than Yahweh did to Moses in Exodus. In those stories, he assumes the form of a burning bush or through the form of a hashmalam on top of Mount Sinai. Here, though, the God of Abram takes on the role of a classical epiphany, or a God who just gets to go down to the humans level and speak to them on an interpersonal level. I mean, we see this all the time in the Iliad, where the various gods do not choose to inspire any sort of fear or wonderment in those they want to communicate with. They just kind of get down to their level and they actually bother to communicate with them. Now, in the case of like Agamemnon, that was Zeus appearing in his dream, but he was trying to mislead him. But it's a whole bunch of tangled Christmas lights, and I'm not really going to bother getting into the Iliad. I don't think I ever will cover the Iliad in its entirety on this channel. It's just too, it's a little too elementary for me. But you get the points. There's a very clear difference between the mannerisms of God right here and God later on. And especially just by going by the traditional Hebrew translations, it's implied that this is still the Canaanite god El. I'd say put a pin in this for way later when we eventually do get to Exodus, as the burning bush clarifies to Moses that he was the same God as the one who convinced Abram to journey to the land of milk and honey, but he says something rather interesting in the midst of that whole spiel. So maybe put a pin in that one if you can remember for several weeks ahead of time, but I won't blame you if you fucking can't. And he removed from thence unto the mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent. Quick note about Bethel. So this was not the original name of this location. The Canaanites called this place Luz, though it was renamed Bethel, or the house of God, after Jacob, had his absolute nightmare fuel of a dream about the ladder reaching up into heaven, which it is a an apocryphal book, Jacob's Ladder, but the way that the ladder is described in that book is frankly horrifying. We'll eventually get to that. Don't worry. It's definitely something I want to touch up on because after reading that, I had trouble sleeping. It is also in this place where he is renamed to Israel, very similar to his uncle Ishmael. We'll dive a bit more into these names when we do get around to these sections of Genesis, but just keep in the back of your mind that a lot of these names call back to the Canaanite word for God, which will not be shed nor formally renounced until much, much later. Having Bethel on the west and Ai on the east, and there he builded an altar unto Jehovah and called upon the name of Jehovah. So the fact that this place is being referred to so early on as Ai is rather hilarious, actually, as the name literally means the heap of ruins, a title bestowed upon it by the Israelites after the site was conquered by Joshua and then completely razed to the ground. I understand that a lot of this is the Bible using location names, which are a bit more modern and familiar to appeal to its readers at that time's sense of geography. But this is like that part in Blood Meridian where Bathcat is introduced and then the narrator immediately jumps to, man, I remember when this guy was horribly murdered and his corpse was mangled and hung up from a tree. And then it jumps right back to the character description. A lot of this is very anticlimactic. I suppose that can be forgiven. This is a holy book. It's not really supposed to be, a narrative like story. Especially since it's a classic. It didn't start in media res, which is the most annoying thing ever for an English major going through any sort of literature at the time. All right, Genesis 12:9. And Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was sore in the land. It's a very strange way of describing that the famine really wasn't there, but sure. Okay, that's pretty good. And it came to pass when he was come near to enter into Egypt, bleh, word salad, that he said unto Sarai his wife, behold now, I know thou art a fair woman to look upon. And it will come to pass when the Egyptians shall see thee, and they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it will be well with me for thy sake, and that my soul may live because of thee. Excuse me. So, yeah, but if the Egyptians are really the horrible, rapey brigands in this section, it's implied that they are. They would just kill Abraham anyhow, since he's still the protectorate to Sarai. So then they could have their way with her. But don't worry, because what happens next is arguably worse. And it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman that she was very fair. And the princes of Pharaoh saw her and praised her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. Let me just get down there a little bit. I did zoom in. I did figure out how to zoom in a little bit just so this would be easier for you guys to read. And he dealt with Abram for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen and he asses and men servants and maid servants and she asses and camels. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, Abram, the main patriarch of the three major religions now commonly referred to as the Abrahamic faith on his account, fucking prostitutes his own wife out to the Egyptian pharaoh in exchange for being able to live in the palace, con the Egyptians out of their livestock, and then assemble a gaggle of butlers and maids, some of which he was almost certainly fucking. But wait, it somehow gets even worse. 12:17. And Jehovah plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife?" So God just kind of gave up the game here and must have explained to Pharaoh at some point that the reason as to why his house was now so full of plagues was Sarai, and the fact that he was committing adultery with her, albeit unknown to him, was totally unacceptable in his eyes. Even though, obviously, even if you take the Hebrew translation of the text, El should not be the god of the Pharaoh of Egypt, but regardless, I guess he still has divine authority over here. Okay. It's very weird. Why saidst thou she is my sister, so that I took her to be my wife? Now therefore behold thy wife, take her and go thy way. Woo, hold on. We only got one more. Come on. No. There we go. And Pharaoh gave men charge concerning him, and they brought him on the way, and his wife, and all that he had. So essentially, what just happened is Abram gets to keep all the servants, livestock, and what have you that he conned out of Pharaoh by whoring out his wife, and he still gets to keep his wife afterwards. I don't know, maybe because Pharaoh feared the wrath of God or whatever. I mean, if I was him, I would be saying, give that shit back, and then you can have your wife. Well, I mean, here's your wife, but give that shit back. You know, like, I gave that to you on good faith through the fact that, you know, you were supposedly giving me your sister to be my wife, but now I don't get anything out of this deal. This is a fucking ripoff. So anyway, that was Genesis chapter 12. I'm gonna go ahead and hide that real quick. Get that set up for Genesis 13 really quick. Let's read some comments very quickly though, just so I can keep up with the chat. Isaac Browning. Bible study takes me back to my extremely religious / abusive childhood. Good times. Well, if it's any consolation, Isaac, I promise not to molest you. Lol at the ancient NTR thing. Yeah, I try to be somewhat clever with these ticker titles when it comes to like the different chapters of Genesis. Sometimes I can't really think of anything, but you know, this one seemed rather fitting. Which Bible translation are we using for these live streams? So this is the New American Standard Bible. This was originally published in, I believe, 1911. As far as I can tell, this one is less egregious when it comes to mistranslations. There are still some things in here that when we do come around to them, I will point them out. That it's just like, no, that's fucking bullshit. Unfortunately, we have never gotten around to publishing the Messiahs and Mythology version of the Bible, which is the most literal translation that you will probably ever find. I probably will never fucking publish that because honestly, I am such a pedantic asshole that I would probably publish it with all of the notes that I have from these live streams, in addition to, it's going to be Old Testament, New Testament, Quran, probably throw in Book of Mormon, probably throw in all of the Gnostic scriptures, probably throw in all of the pseudepigraphical texts. Yeah, it would just be a clusterfuck of a book. It would probably be several times thicker than War and Peace. It is something that I would love to do. It's just something that I don't think that I ever would have the time to do, and especially not something that I would ever have the time to like actually go back and do this whole series all over again after publishing it. Damn, Abraham the pimp. Yes, except he's not called Abraham yet. We'll get to that. Welcome, Bubblegum Gun. She was all right. 7 out of 10. Believe it or not, this is not the last time Abram does this. Later on, I think it's 8. No. It's Genesis 20. Excuse me. Genesis 20, he does it again, except this time Sarai is like over 90 years old, and yet he still convinces somebody to marry her and give him a whole bunch of shit for her as kind of like a bride price, which I don't know how you whore out a 90-year-old woman in that way, but sure, why not? Okay. How are we doing on time? Whoa, get back here. All right, so going ahead here, and we're going to jump into Genesis chapter 13. I honestly don't even remember if I have any notes on this whatsoever, to be honest with you. Oh, okay, excuse me. We have a few. They are absolutely notes that I could have just omitted or saved for later, but I needed to have something in this chapter, so here we go. It's basically just going to be reading. And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold that he stole. And he went on his journeys from the south, even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first, and there Abram called on the name of Jehovah. And Lot also, who went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. No, come on. I hate how touchy this is. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so they could not dwell together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelt then in the land. Apologies for the terrible pronunciation. So the Perizzites, just taking a quick side here, are these people who are a bit separate from the rest of the Canaanites due to their condition. So their name means rural, implying that these were the shepherds of the Canaanites who were completely separate from those who dwelt in the city. It's a bit classist to be mentioning them as a completely separate entity, but whatever. It's not like the Israelites were going to be quick to humanize their mortal enemies anyway. So, I guess as a more relatable example, I forget what the hell they're called, but in the Arabian Peninsula, the Arabs, their name originally came from the fact that they dwelt around the city. So they were like shepherds and farmers and shit like that. The people within the city, I don't remember what they were called, but obviously, eventually, the Arabs kind of overtook them, and obviously now it's called the Arabian Peninsula. But it's kind of like that sort of situation. Um, And Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdsmen and thy herdsmen, for we are brethren. Is it not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from thee. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou take the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of the Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere. Before Jehovah destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, and the garden of Jehovah like the land of Egypt, as thou goest unto Zoar. Holy shit, just give up the game right now. So, this is another one of my notes that I just kind of included right now. There's not really that much to go over in this section, or this chapter, I guess so I'm just going to go ahead right now and explain the etymology of these places. We don't really know. It's very speculative. So in Hebrew, Sodom is actually known as Sedom, and its meaning can be extrapolated from the Hebrew verb sadam, meaning to burn, sadad, meaning to plow, like a field, you dirty-minded cunts, or possibly even shadad, meaning to act out, oftentimes violently. Given how Bethel and Ai are named earlier, it's likely that the first meaning is the correct one, and that we just had to be made aware that this is, in fact, a place which eventually would be destroyed by one of God's Hashmalim. Though, alternatively, you could say the city was a farming town, or that its residents were so sexually deprived that their sins defined the town right down to its very name. However, even this is contentious, as Ezekiel, of all people, clarifies later on that the sin of the Sodomites wasn't really sodomy, but rather the town had, quote, abundant food and careless ease, but she did not help the poor and needy. That's from Ezekiel 16:49, if anybody really wants to look that up. Echoing back to what he said was a likely tradition started with the offset of Cain's exile like 2 episodes ago. So that was, in Ezekiel's eyes, Sodom's grave sin. Gomorrah is a little bit more difficult to ascertain. So the original Hebrew name was Amorah, which can mean several different things, but most likely the root word is amar, meaning to grip or to bind. Meaning that, like Sodom, they may have had been defined by the characteristics of being a little bit too tyrannical and tight-fisted. But yeah, that's all contentious. And by the way, if that is the case, that's very much a case of the pot calling the kettle black. Jumping over into Zoar, we'll touch up a bit more on this later, and why its association with Sodom, Gomorrah, and 2 other cities, which haven't been mentioned to this point, may point to the fact that God may not have directly been the cause nor the arbiter for their destruction. But we're gonna get a little bit more into that once we get to Genesis 14. So in any case, let's I have no other notes, so let's just finish up the rest of this chapter, honestly. Um 13:11. So Lot chose him all the plain of the Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain and moved his tents as far as Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners against Jehovah exceedingly, though it doesn't mention that they like gay butt sex. And Jehovah said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine own eyes and look from the place where thou art, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed forever. It reminds me of Lion King. Woo. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then may thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for unto thee will I give it. And Abram moved his tent and came and dwelt by the oaks of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto Jehovah. A note I attempted to make here was you'll notice that he's building quite a few altars to Jehovah throughout these chapters in Genesis. I tried to find an example of if any of these altars or, any sort of landmark still exists that could potentially be these altars, but I was shit out of luck on that one. Don't worry. Once we get to next episode, which will be a while from now, there is actually a real landmark which concerns one of the most famous stories of the Bible, which is rather interesting. So excited to get into that one. So anyway, that was chapter 13. Not a lot going on. Very straightforward. Basically, Abram and Lot are separated now. Boop. All right. Not too many comments really to go through. Nothing really to catch up on. I will agree, Canine. The Bible is a lot more fun to study when you're an adult and you actually have some genuine curiosity about it rather than, just being locked in a fucking room. And it's just like the thing about Bible study for me as a kid is like we would only read the same 4 or 5 stories. You got Noah's Ark, Jesus walking on water and then getting crucified, which I guess is technically 2 different stories, but whatever. You would maybe on a good day get David slaying Goliath. I don't think we ever covered like Jericho or anything like that. We barely touched up on Exodus for whatever reason. Even though I'm sure that there were plenty of other Sunday school classes that taught a lot more on that. But like I just remember like my first major exposure to Exodus was actually watching Prince of Egypt several years later. But yeah, no, this is fun for me. And look, we're making somewhat progress. We're on to the 3rd chapter out of 6. So almost halfway through. Let me get a tea real quick. And if anybody has any questions, go ahead and post them right now. Otherwise, after I lubricate my vocal cords a little bit, we're just going to move right along here swiftly onto Genesis 14. Come on, you fag. There we go. Sorry, the latch on my cooler broke, which means I'm probably going to have to get a new one, which fucking sucks because I've been using this thing for years now and I've never had a problem up until this point, but now I'm just afraid that, you know, the door is going to crack open and, you know, it's going to ruin all my drinks. So, well, not ruin them, but just, you know, make them warm. Okay, we got a new comment here. Hold on. You got to go out of your way to hear anything about the Old Testament, which to me is much more interesting. Yeah, like I said, up until I was actually doing research for this episode of the Bible Book by Book, I didn't realize that Abram had actually pimped out his wife twice so that he could fucking steal from the guy who he pimped his wife out to. That does not, for some reason, that doesn't seem like the sort of thing that would fly in a Sunday school conversation. K9 says, I've heard that The Prince of Egypt is a good movie. I definitely want to see it at some point. Yeah, it's in that era of like late 90s DreamWorks versus Disney. Like before they became like a super big competitor with like the premiere of Shrek. But honestly, it is a really good movie. I would recommend you go ahead and watch it if you haven't seen it before. The music in it is actually really fantastic. Justin says it's all right. I like what they did with the original story of Exodus. You know, they put a little bit more drama into it, which was nice. But at the end of the day, it is still kind of limited by the fact that it is a Bible story. So, but you will not be able to change my mind about the fucking music. Especially Let My People Go. That fucking song slaps. I was about to say harder than my dad after drink number 3. God damn, I am so uncreative with my jokes. Big thirst. On to Genesis 14, the Jewish version of 300 and some change. Can we... Fucking hell. There we go. You know what would be nice, Messiah, is if you decide to share your screen. There we go. Genesis 14. And it came to pass in the days of Amphirel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Shedor Laumer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, that they made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Birshka, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemember, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar. Why, yes, I am a white guy attempting to pronounce these incredibly Middle Eastern names and failing horribly. What cued you into that? So here's what added context to what I had alluded to earlier with Zoar. It was a city aligned into a pentopolis against Amphirel and co. meaning that Lot definitely made the wrong decision for which plot of land to lay claim to. Now, by the middle of chapter 19, these cities are all destroyed with the exception of Zoar. Sodom and Gomorrah are explicitly mentioned as being destroyed via fire and brimstone, though it does say those cities and all in the plain. For those of you wondering, Zeboim means the collective, and Admah, similar to Adamas, means the red ground, implying it was built on a large suppository of clay. Rather convenient, then, that the two of the major cities, united with Sodom and Gomorrah, all end up destroyed about the same time, all while waging war with these 4 other city-states simultaneously, don't you think? It's something that I will extrapolate on, and it is a hill that I am willing to die on. Once we get to Genesis 19, just because, well, you'll see. But like, basically, my theory as to the practical extermination of Sodom and Gomorrah is far superior to any of the quote unquote academic theories out there. And these join together in the Vale of Siddim. The same is the Salt Sea, the Dead Sea, for anybody who needs clarification on that. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Che Guevara and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaim in Astaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzim in Ham, and the Eminem in Shaveh Kirathim. Whoa, fuck. And the Horites in their Mount Seir unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness, which you don't need to memorize any of that stuff. It's basically just their conquest that they had while they were still all united. Not till 14. Okay. And they returned and they came to En Mishpat, the same as Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites and also the Amorites that dwelt in the Hazazon Tamar. Very interesting that they're mentioning the Amorites right now, because technically the Amorites should not even exist. But again, you're going to have to wait until the end of Genesis 19, which is universally recognized as probably the most fucked up chapter of all of Genesis, possibly the entire Bible. But anyway, 14:8. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar, in case you forgot that. And they set the battle in array against them in the Vale of Siddim, against Chichi, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goim, Ampharos, king of Shinar, and Antioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against the 5. Now the Vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled. And there they fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. So I want to highlight this section specifically. This one and 11 and 12. So let me just quickly go through that. And they took the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals and went their way. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. So the war against the I guess we're just going to call them the Confederation of Four Kingdoms, was already not going off very well for the Pentapolis, well before any sort of citywide destruction was mentioned. Meaning that they very well could have come back to finish the job at a later date, and would more than likely do so, not only to them, but also Abram's people in Canaan as well, given what is about to transpire. Again, this all leads into a pseudo crackpot theory that I have, but one that I absolutely will defend to my very dying breath. And guess what? We are now in a dry spell for notes. So we're just going to keep on reading until like the very last passage. Can we fucking get to... There we go. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew. Now he dwelt by the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner, and these were confederate with Abram. And when Abram learned that his brother was taken captive, not his brother, his nephew, he led forth his trained men, born in his house 318, and pursued as far as Dan. What kind of former military training did these guys get in a city of tents in the middle of buttfuck nowhere? Who the hell knows? But they exist now. And he divided himself against them by night, he and his servants, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. So the Confederation is not destroyed. They're not, they haven't been completely crushed yet. Just keep that in the back of your mind. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought back his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. Which, now that I read that out loud, it implies that that women aren't people. Based Bible. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Che, and the kings that were with him, and the vale of Shava. The same is the king's vale. And that fucking name from like DC Comics of like the little pixie fucker who's like impossible, whose name is impossible to say, but you have to say his name backwards in order to defeat him. King of Salem brought forth bread and wine, and he was priest to God Most High. And he blessed them and said, Blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who hath delivered thine enemies into thine hand, and gave him a tenth of all. And can we do this without completely destroying this? Yes. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons, and take the goods to thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hand unto Jehovah God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take a thread, nor a shoe latchet, nor aught that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich. Save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men that went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and the let them take their portion. Again, there really wasn't too much to say here in terms of analysis. The text is pretty straightforward here. Though I do have to point out that despite being rescued by Abram here, Lot doesn't return to his uncle in Canaan and instead settles back into Sodom for whatever reason, despite the fact that it is clearly not the safest place to be settling down with your family. But whatever. I will say a couple years back, I remember History Channel did like their own like live action adaptation of the Bible, where they attempted to kind of give Lot's wife a little bit more character, where she was like a total fucking bitch. And she's like, no, we can't go back to live with your uncle for no apparent reason because he smells or something like that. I don't honestly, I don't remember. The only thing I remember from that series is that Samson, for whatever reason, was black, and Satan was Barack Obama. So, uh, Justin had to go. Well wishes. Hope to see you back here for episode 5 whenever we do decide to do that. Melny Bonian. I apologize if I am butchering your name, but yeah, Prince of Egypt is amazing. The parting of the sea scene and the shadow of the whale in the water was so good. Yeah, no, that is a really well animated scene. Just very unfortunate that that never even happened in Exodus, but you know. Again, if you know, you already know, but we'll get to that eventually. That's one of the more famous mistranslations of the Bible. Difference between Red Sea and Reed Sea. We can actually get rid of these now that we're done with them. All right. So, Genesis 15. I could not come up with a clever title for this one. I apologize. I just decided to name it what really happens in that one, which is the second covenant. The first covenant, if you can remember, is essentially where God was just like, oh, sorry, I wiped out all life on Earth. I guess I won't do that ever again. At least not with a flood. So that was the first covenant. Second covenant is actually the actual establishment of the religion. So let's go. Let's jump right into this. Genesis chapter 15, verse 1, which for some reason scrolled past it for whatever reason. After these things, the word of Jehovah came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield, and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, O Lord Jehovah, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless? And he that shall be possessor of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. Now, it's not implicitly stated anywhere in Genesis 14, but rather in a medieval Jewish text, Bereshit Rabbi, that Eliezer is supposedly the guy who supplied the 318 men to help Abram go out and rescue Lot. 318 being the numerical value of Eliezer's name in Hebrew. In which case, without a legitimate heir, it would make sense that the estate of Abram would go to the guy who actually helped him out in his time of need. I mean, he should get something for it, but Abram's trying to cheat him out of it in any way that he can by having a son as quickly as possible. And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of Jehovah came unto him, saying, This man shall not be thine heir, but he shall come forth out of thine own bowels, shall be thine heir. That's not where sperm cells come from, but okay. And he brought, slow down, and he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now towards heaven and number the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. Which is kind of shorthanding him a little bit. For those of you wondering, the naked eye can perceive about 10,000 stars in the night sky without any sort of like light pollution. So I guess Jehovah was just lowballing here, because on the opposite side of the coin, in Genesis 13, he said that his descendants would be as numerous as the dust particles on earth. So am I just reading too much into this, or did he just kind of walk back the number a little bit there? He's like, well, you know what, that is a little bit excessive. So now he's saying, you get about 10,000 descendants. That's about it. There you go. Have fun with that, kid. And he believed in Jehovah, and he reckoned it to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am Jehovah that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it. Okay, we're good. And he said, O Lord Jehovah, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me a heifer 3 years old, and a she-goat 3 years old, and a ram 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took all of these and divided them in the midst, and laid each half over against the other, but the birds divided he not. So the wording here is a little bit confusing, but essentially he took a cow, a she-goat, a ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Then he bisected them and then just kind of laid out their corpse parts like in a row. So like one half is like on one side of the aisle, the other half is on the other side of the aisle, and then there's like a little bit of a space between them. Just because it's a little bit strange. Then we get to like the most filler verse, I think, of this entire chapter. And the birds of prey came down upon the carcasses, and Abraham drove them away. Not sure why that needed to be mentioned, but okay. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them. And they shall afflict them for 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. With great substance, excuse me. My God. If anybody wasn't able to tell, even though we just got done discussing this, God is referring to Egypt specifically here. Kind of a strange thing that this captivity would have been known about beforehand, yet Joseph would have intentionally corresponded himself with the Egyptian court anyway. It can be assumed that this prophecy was forgotten, given the fact that Moses didn't even know the name of Abram's God at that point by the Bible's own lore. The entirety of the Pentateuch was written by Moses after the Exodus. But this kind of seems like the kind of thing which should have been remembered or at the very least written down at some points. Just like a cautionary word, like, don't involve yourself with foreign nationals lest you be confined to them for like the next 400 years. But hey, whatever, I'm ancient record keeping must have been very different back in the day. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. And in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the inquiry of the Amorite is not yet full. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a flaming torch that passed between these pieces. In that day Jehovah made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. So it's not entirely clear here whether or not Abram is still perceiving all of this with, just like a dream, in a dream state, or with his actual eyes. But it is assumed that the pot and the torch passing between the bisected animal carcasses is God's way of signing off on another covenant with the Israelites. This time in promising their land, though not with any sort of natural observable phenomenon like with the rainbow. It's assumed that this covenant is more of a warning to Abram not to break his word with God, as fire, literally speaking, is a physical manifestation of God's wrath, and its procession between the animal halves could be his way of saying, and this will happen to you if you are a naughty boy. It's also worth mentioning that it's highlighted here that Israel should be a lot bigger than than it technically is right now. This country should be spanning from like the Nile all the way to the Euphrates, which that's a pretty decent chunk of land. I think that's bigger than any European country, as far as I'm aware, with exception of Russia, obviously. But yeah, that's a non-negligible amount of land. They haven't quite gotten everything that they were promised yet. So are we about to see an uprising of Zionists trying to take back their inheritance? Who knows? I highly doubt it, because they're having one hell of a time protecting what little bit of land they have right now. But hey, it could happen. And then the next 3 passages here are basically just like highlighting how big it should be. The Kenite, the Kenizzite, the Cadmonite, the Hittite. Whoa, fucking hell, God, slow down. I hate this thing. The Hittite, the Perizzite, the Rephaim, and the Amorite, and the Canaanite, and the Geshites, and Jebusites. Basically, he's just promising a very big plot of land. So that would be number 15. Number 15. The last thing you'd want your God to promise you in the midst of a bunch of dead animals is that you will conquer the majority of the known world and also be subjugated by the Egyptians for the next 4 centuries. But as it turns out, that may be what you get. Abram the prophet was a pimp. Fuck off. Shit. Uh, um. Oh. Oh, Canine. Oh, Canine. You just said something that made me very angry. The History Channel would be a lot more respectable if they had more historical fiction shows like Vikings and less Ancient Aliens crap with the guy with the weird hair. Uh, I agree with the first part, or the second part rather. The first part is absolute dog shit though. Vikings is not historical fiction, not even fucking close. Oh my god. That show bothers me so much, after learning the historicity of that age that is being explored, and like how it's kind of in like that buffer zone, like right between where like real history begins for the Vikings and where like the mythological cycle ends, because like the tale of Sigurd and or Siegfried, excuse me, and Brunhild would have ended right then and there. Uh, and then afterwards, you get into Aslug and Ragnar Lothbrok and stuff like that. But that whole show just mixes so many different like Viking eras together, and like interestingly enough, by the end of the series, all of the sons of Ragnar that didn't die historically were unceremoniously killed off, and the ones who actually survived to see the end of the series were actually the ones who died in battle. So I don't even know where they're getting that one. Also, the whole Rollo existed in a completely different era from the Vikings. It is somewhat historically accurate to say that he was the progenitor of like all of the royal families in England. But it, no, Rollo just did not even exist in the same century as Ragnar Lothbrok. There's so many things that I could bitch and complain about in terms of how historically accurate that show was, or the lack thereof. But yeah, no, they definitely do need to drop Ancient Aliens. They need to drop Swamp People. They need to drop what was that show? Treasure of Oak Island or something like that. They just need to drop all those shows and actually, like go back to, well, I say go back to its golden days, like when I was a kid. But I remember when, as a kid, history would only show how it's made reruns like 24/7. So, um, that is correct. The Iranian regime uses this Nile to Euphrates thing to scare its population, like saying, if we don't fuck them over in Israel, they're going to be right under your nose. Uh, so here's the thing. And I'm sure I'm already in hot water with YouTube, so I really don't even care if they get pissy about me for mentioning this sort of thing. But it is true that Jews do have a disproportionate amount of influence, particularly over the entertainment industry in the United States, and in a lot of other like international groups like banking and stuff like that. Um, but as a counter to that, I just don't think that they have the numbers necessarily. Like if you just kind of like let's say like the whole New World Order thing is like a reality or whatever, they don't really have the numbers once the shroud gets lifted on that whole thing to really take a stand on anything. Especially since like you can't even really count like Judaism converts, because like you have to willingly convert to Judaism. They do not engage in like any sort of missionary practices. That was actually started at the onset of Christianity. So I agree. It is a lot of fear mongering going on. Oh my God, shut up, phone. But yeah, what does it say? Morons don't realize that even if it happens, Israel. I assume you tried to type Israelites, wouldn't have anything to do with the Iran mainland, so it's not technically a concern. No, that I was gonna say, like, what realistically would they want out of Iran? What realistically would anybody really want with the Middle East in general? I've always said that if the holy pilgrimage sites did not exist around like Mecca and like all those places, you would not see so many people vying for the Middle East. It's a dry, barren desert. Like, who cares? Let's see. Fair enough. I heard through secondhand information without seeing it, so I was not aware of its inaccuracies. But still, the ancient alien guy has weird hair. I have no room to comment because I am currently trying to grow out my hair so that I can have the Johnny Depp haircut from what the fuck is that movie called? The one with the Sleepy Hollow Johnny Depp haircut. The hell is his name? What is that character's name? Ichabod Orange? I don't know. I just I like that hair, and I kind of want to have that hair. It's gonna take me a while to grow out my hair long enough, but hopefully I can get to that point. Isaac says, Vikings pisses me off so much. If they had just told the actual legends and stories, it would have been better. Bjorn Ironside literally sacked a city in Italy in real life. Bjorn Ironside is also basically the entire reason that Sweden exists, and they completely just gloss over that. He just dies for no reason. They totally mishandle his character. Wait, are they seriously still showing Duck Dynasty? I thought Duck Dynasty was like AMC, not History Channel. Pawn Stars is okay because there is some history involved in that, I guess. But yeah, no, Ice Road Truckers is just stupid. That should not exist. History Channel needs to make history content. There are plenty of channels on YouTube that do it successfully, so why can't they? Well, Isaac, depending on what your cable package includes, you might get History 2, which is their history channel where they actually show history, which you have to pay extra for every month. It doesn't bother me because I don't watch cable, and I'm sick to death of just watching like high production stuff. Especially the whole cliche where like something dramatic happens, they have the music swelling up, and then it just cuts to commercial, and then you have to sit through like 5 minutes of commercial, and then by the time it comes back, you don't even remember what the hell was going on. So yeah, no, that's part of the reason I just stopped watching TV in general. Commercials are also just way too annoying. I purposely even pay for YouTube Premium just to make sure that I don't see ads, especially not on my phone. Oh, fuck. We're getting there, boys. We're getting there. 2 more to go. I don't think I have much of anything really to say. No, wait. Actually, I do. I have quite a bit to say about these next ones. Okay, never mind. Just strap in, I guess, because we're about to get into some real analysis for once. Genesis 16. Changing mind like a girl changes clothes. If I can get that back up on screen. There we go. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Uh, just a quick reminder that like 99% of all of the Hebrews thus far should ethnically be Egyptian. Either the servants of Abram either the servants that Abram had conned the Pharaoh out of, or their living descendants. Meaning that the Arabs, whose lineage is about to be explained here very shortly, are canonically, ethnically half Egyptian. Depending on how you feel about Afrocentric theories regarding the ethnicity of Egyptians, you can say some very inflammatory things that I'm sure some Middle Eastern gentleman will take in stride. He will very kindly accept those assertions. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now Jehovah hath restrained me from bearing. Go in, I pray thee, unto my handmaid. It may be that I shall obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her handmaid, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. So Sarai is awful, if you couldn't already tell. She tells Abram to go ahead and sleep with Hagar in hopes that she will sire him a son, which she does. But when he actually goes through with it, she immediately becomes offended by this and tries to get him to exile her away. Keep in mind, this is well before God made any sort of prophecies to Sarai that she would bear him a son. So really, in order to keep the estate within the family, this is the only recourse available to them now. And yet she's jeopardizing the entire lineage of something that was prophesied by literal God because she wants to be petty and immediately change her mind like a typical woman. Yes, I did say that. Eminem, if you're in the chat, is probably going to go fucking ballistic on me, but I don't care. And Sarai, there we go. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee. I gave my handmaid into thy bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. Jehovah judge between me and thee. Which he didn't. You never bear Abram a son before. So Hagar, or some other woman, I suppose, was really your only option for reproducing. She also conveniently glosses over the fact that it was by her own orders that Abram conceived a child with Hagar. Sarai is literally one of the worst characters in the Bible up to this point because she is a howling hypocrite who blames God Almighty rather than herself for her own actions, all that is so that she can play the victim when she inevitably changes her mind. Like, this is like what the Christians did to, going back to that for a little bit, this is like what the Christians did to Brunhild after they got a hold of like the Norse poems. Like, they just vilified the fuck out of her. They made her like an absolutely awful human being. just like accusing Siegfried of rape and stuff like that. It's just like, even though like the original text implies that it was all very consensual and that it was like a Shakespearean tragedy, sort of akin to Romeo and Juliet by the end. But no, they got their hands on it and they just decide woman bad. But I mean, this is essentially the same thing that happened right here. And this is actually written in the canon cosmological book. So I don't know if there was some sort of insecurities in there and they felt like they needed to include that, but in any case, fuck Sarai. But Abram said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her which is good in thine eyes. And Sarai dealt heartily with her, and she fled from her face. So some circles have interpreted this as Abram essentially recanting Hagar's freedom so that Sarai would be allowed to just turn her away and, cause her to flee from the tent city that they're currently occupying. I mean, it is a little bit odd that a servant girl who is carrying the child of the patriarch of the entire settlement would still be a slave regardless. Just a little weird, but it's not expressly pointed out anywhere in the Bible, so you could say that that's a misinterpretation of the text. But if that is what actually happened, another point on Abram's record for being a completely awful person. Anyway, and the angel of Jehovah found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way of Shur. In the way to Shur, excuse me. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's handmaid, whence camest thou, and whither goest thou? And she said, I am fleeing from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of Jehovah said unto her, return to thy mistress, and submit thyself unto her hands. That's some great advice. And the angel of Jehovah said unto her, I will greatly multiply thy seed, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. We're not scrolling too far? Okay, good. And the angel of Jehovah said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shall bear a son, and thou shalt call his name Ishmael, because Jehovah hath heard thy affliction. So call me Ishmael. I was born in a house built by my father. I'm not going to recount the rest of that book. That Moby Dick is boring as shit. So anyway, Ishmael was originally pronounced Yishmael, meaning that which God has hearkened, essentially confirming the fact that this was the son promised to Abram by God. Of course, Genesis 17 is about to come up and completely render this point moot, though it is worth mentioning that this is a much more noble name than Isaac, which merely means he will laugh. And when we do get to that, you'll see it's kind of like a very underhanded insult sort of a name. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. 16:12. And he shall be as a wild ass among men. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against his. And he shall dwell over against all his brethren. Excuse me. Starting to run out of steam here. So this passage means to convey that Ishmael, while his people, the Arabs, will be multius and widespread, they will effectively enter into conflicts with pretty much everyone that they encounter. The same, interestingly enough, could be said of the Israelites, who are about to have four major enemies to go through in the Bible before eventually they find themselves, historically now, at odds with the Middle Eastern nations who claim descendants from Ishmael. So a lot of people like to claim, like, this is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They point to this and they're like, oh, look, the Bible is real because people in the Middle East all hate each other. It's like, well, no, that's just always been the case. You can't just say, your son's descendants will have many enemies, and then when they actually do have many enemies, when talking about the governments of entire nations having many enemies, it's like that whole thing, like, there will be mockers. Yeah, of course there will be mockers. There are mockers in your own time. We have ancient Roman graffiti, like the very first depiction of Jesus Christ, for those of you who don't know, was actually a piece of Roman graffiti which shows like a crucified figure with the head of an ass. And that canonically is the very first artistic depiction of Jesus that we ever got. So it's very ironic that I am calling out somebody else for reading too much into this. But even still, like, it's very forced pattern recognition. I don't like it. It's bad. Don't listen to them. They're nasty people. Listen to me. Subscribe to Messiahs and Mythology. Join us for Bible book by book studies whenever the hell I decide to have them. Anyway, 1612. Oh, no, wait. We already got that one. Excuse me. 1613. And she called the name of Jehovah that spake unto her, Thou art a God that seeth. For she said, Have I ever here looked after him that seeth me? So the name that she uses here to refer to Jehovah is El Roy in the original Hebrew, or the God who sees, or the God of sight, something akin to that, and is narratively astonished at the fact that this God would even have bothered with her, seeing as she herself did not believe in him. This can be taken two ways. Either A, this passage supports the narrative of the early church that the God of the Hebrews is for everyone, and therefore the conversion of the Gentiles may be justified, or B, Hagar is the exception to the rule, as she is the mother of the unborn baby who was supposed to take the reins of God's chosen people. Take that however you wish when reading into this, but I think missionary practices were a mistake, and in that vein, I hate this passage for justifying it. 1614. Wherefore the well was called Bir Laha Roy. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. That name means well of the living who sees me. Obvious namesake is pretty obvious. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bare. Why does that need to be repeated? I don't know. It all it does is serve to break my brain. Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. This is just a really roundabout way of saying that he was 86 years old by this point. So we're still continuing on with that whole theme of the Bible where people conceive children well past the prime age to do so. But it just happens because, people live to be 150 by this point. So, yeah, whatever. I know somebody took like a really big issue with like how long uh people lived in the Bible, especially prior to the flood. Uh I mean, all you can really do is just like shrug your shoulders and say, well, I mean, it is how it is, not too much I can really do about that. Let's see here. Pawn Star says Antiques Roadshow for Millennials. Excuse me, I am a Zoomer and I watch both of those. I used to watch both of those shows. um, can I? That's okay. We should be wrapping up within a half hour at least, hopefully. Uh, I actually wanted I actually want to finish fairly soon here because I want to get going to the store here myself. So, thankfully, we only have one more chapter to go. Old man balls Nagesh. Sorry, I'm late. Gonna crank this back to the beginning. Well, when you do eventually get back to this point, just know that I acknowledged your presence and I say hello. Um, Hagar sounds like the name of an asterisk's Viking character or Hagar the Horrible. Um, kind of. So, like when I was looking up like the thumbnail for this series, which by the way, it is incredibly easy to find thumbnails for this series, striking looking thumbnails, just because like I think that every single passage of the Bible has been painted or artistically represented in some point, in some way, shape, or form at some point in the span of human history. But yeah, when I was actually looking up this one, I actually was getting quite a few search results for Hagar the Horrible. Just like finding like comic strips that like people just like cut out of the newspaper and just pin to a cork board in their office or something like that. Uh, that was a very minor inconvenience. It's nowhere near as bad as like doing a Japanese mythology video and trying to find like reference images to Amaterasu, and then every single image result you get is either Naruto or like that Okami video game. So you have to specify Amaterasu goddess, and even then you got slim pickings. So uh the joys of dealing with the the DuckDuckGo search bar, I guess. Am I feeling lucky? No, I am not. All right, boys. We are down to the last one, and this is probably going to be the most controversial one. Not for anything that I'm going to say. I'm going to try and keep my mouth shut, but I imagine that when I come back and to look at the comments, there's going to be quite a few comments about people complaining about this certain practice. So I am going to be looking forward to those and reading them aloud. But in any case, let's move on to Genesis chapter 17. This is the one where you have to cut your penis. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, Jehovah appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me, and thou be perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be the father of a multitude of nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for the father of a multitude of nations have I made thee. You might think that this name change from Abram to Abraham is a bit underwhelming, and yeah, you'd be correct. So Abram, or as it is spelled in Hebrew, Avram, comes from the word Ave, meaning father, and Ram, meaning high or revered. Essentially, his name before was High Father. And adding the H, or Ham, to our significantly less advanced munchy brains, only means many. So High Father became the High Father of many. Great. Very good. Let me scroll down here. The page breaks are obnoxiously large in this PDF. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. I don't know if he pushing him out of his urethra, but whatever. Actually, it's not even Abraham specifically. He only gets the 2 kids canonically, and he ends up sending one of them away to try and rough it out in the middle of the desert where he nearly dies. So he's more like the grandfather of many, or the great grandfather of many, or the however many greats you want to put in before his name, father of many. Let's see here. You got to be delicate. Oh, no. Yeah, that's too far. God damn it. There we go. All right. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land of thy sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession. And what the hell was that? And I will be their God. And God said unto Abraham, and as for thee, thou shalt keep my covenant, thou and thy seed after thee throughout their generations. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every male among you shall be circumcised. We did it, boys. We got to the funny penis cutting quote. So it might surprise some of you to know that circumcision did not actually originate with the Jews. It's not entirely clear where or why the practice did originate, but the working hypothesis is that the captured male soldiers of an opposing army died a bit too often when their captors tried to castrate or penectomize them. Excuse me. So in an effort to keep them emasculated while also ensuring they just didn't die of an infection as soon as the snipping came about, also that, they could keep them as slaves, they just cut the foreskin off. And it's thought that later on, after it was observed that this really didn't do anything to halt their reproductive capabilities, the act took on a more religious undertone, signifying the maturity of a boy into a man and providing some much-needed male-oriented hygiene at the time. For those of you who don't know, smegma is incredibly gross, and if you're living in a time where you believe that the motions of the sun and the moon are moved by the invisible hands of gods, you see this stuff growing on the tip of your dick, and you're just like, ah! So, understandable. Whatever your position on circumcision is, it's at least much more humane and arguably more effective to circumcise a child 8 days after birth, as is the Jewish tradition, than it is to wait until puberty, as that shit hurts and can leave someone with an advanced nervous system bedridden for days in agony. As we're about to see, we're eventually going to get to what is quite possibly my favorite story in the entire Bible, or at least the Old Testament. At least not from like a perspective where I totally nerd out. That'll be when we do eventually get to David and Solomon, but that's way later down the line. This is at least my favorite story in Genesis that I'm mentioning right now. We'll get to it. Don't you worry. It is hilarious. I love it. I love it so much. So where are we at? We're at 1711. Can we scroll down just a little bit? Just get that to the top of the page. Chapter 17 is actually kind of long. There we go. And ye shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of a covenant betwixt me and you. That is a word you don't see used very often, and I think we should bring it back. Betwixt. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every male throughout your generations, he that is born in the house or bought with money of any foreigner that is not of thy seed. So essentially, just clarification that slaves also need to be circumcised too, again, relating back to the possible origins of the practice. And also clarifying here that only boys need to be circumcised. Circumcision for girls has never been ordained by the Bible in any way, shape, or form. You can't point the finger at them this time. A lot of that has to do with like a lot of sub-Saharan like superstitions and stuff like that. And yeah, circumcision for girls is actually a lot worse. It's just it does a lot more damage than what it's actually intending to rectify. So yeah, that in that case, I would actually consider that to be real, true genital mutilation. But I'm going to withhold my opinions because I don't want to be crucified. Because I'll say one thing and one thing only, and I might get crucified just for saying this. I myself am circumcised, and I do not miss my foreskin. Like, I recognize that, it wasn't like a conscious decision on my part to get it snipped off, but, I've lived 25 years of my life without a foreskin. And honestly, I've never, woken up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night and just be like, oh God, where is it? I need to go back to the hospital where I was born, find the decayed, shriveled remains, and just staple it back onto my dick. I never had that moment. But that's the most I'll say on it. I will read your guys' comments on it. Don't worry. Like I said, I am a bastion for free speech on here. So if you ever do want to express any sort of opinion, it doesn't have to be about circumcision. If it's anything that has to do with anything regarding the Bible, honestly, feel free to just post it in the comment section, and I'll share it. I'm not whether I agree with it or not. I don't care. I believe that everyone has a right to have their voice heard in some way, shape, or form. YouTube does not reciprocate that that sentiment, but hey, it is what it is. Oh God, where are we? We're at 1713, I think. Yes, no. Can the PDF stop scrolling around? Crazy. Oh, and this is just essentially clarifying what was said before. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised. Biblical English is hard. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenants. There seems to be a bit of an exception that has been made in modern times here. If for some reason you wanted to convert to Judaism, which, by the way, nobody's really forcing your hand to do so, they don't engage in missionary practices. But if you do decide to convert and you're not already circumcised, you aren't required to by most synagogues. So I guess this covenant is something that you just kind of have to be born into. Like, for some reason, like, you're born Jewish and you're not circumcised, and then for whatever reason, even though like that sort of thing is like pretty much preordained by doctrine, uh I don't know. It there's a couple moving parts to that. 17:15. And God said unto Abraham, as for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. So Sarai's original name meant something akin to princess, whereas Sarah is a bit more mature, as it means queen, or more accurately, female chieftain. A bit strange considering she was already married to a pharaoh at one point, but I digress. And I will bless her, and moreover, I will give thee a son of her. Yeah, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. 17:17 for the superstitious. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, that is 90 years old, bear? To which I just got to say, it's hilarious that Abraham doesn't even know that just a few generations ago, these guys were having kids at well over 200 years old. Even his own dad had him at like 70. So I must ask, has the longevity of humanity really dissipated that quickly that the fertility window has closed to basically akin to what it is right now? Further still, Abraham literally had a kid no more than 13 years ago up to this point. I mean, I get it. Sarah should be well beyond the menopause stage at this point, but you're literally making a deal with God here. He let you win over a 4-nation army with like an army which was probably smaller than that of just the Sodomites alone, and allowed you to escape Egypt centuries before Moses did, and saved your son and surrogate mother's life when she was stranded in the middle of the desert. Honestly, dude, I think you're going to be fine. Hold on here 1 second. Sorry about that. That was a little bit annoying. So anyway, fun or not so fun fact, depending on how funny or bad you find this, there was a guy that held the Silent Hill wiki hostage with with his circumcision headcanon due to the bad experiences with the practice. Yeah. That was a Wang video, I believe. That was nutty. Like I don't know, like he was like claiming like the game just like had like some sort of like undertones that was like promoting circumcision or whatever, and like he was like so upset about it. Somehow he got to be like a moderator for the Wikipedia page, but whatever. Okay, so anyway, where was I? Oh, hold on. I need to scroll down a little bit here. So we are at, oh, of course, we got another page break. I hate these. Yeah. And Abraham said unto God, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And that's literally all that I had to read before I have to scroll down again. This PDF is awful. I do apologize for that. Eventually, we're going to be experimenting with like streaming through like OBS and stuff like that, so that we might maybe don't have these problems, and I can just, you know, do everything through one window, through like Acrobat Reader, which is a lot more accurate with like its scrolling, and you know, it's not a total mess. So in any case, and God said, nay, but Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his seed after him. So going back, highlighting the name Isaac, it is a little bit condescending if you read into it a little bit. It means he who laughs, and it was actually given to him by God following Abraham and later Sarah, laughing at the absurdity of having a child at such an old age. A sort of way for God to say, well, screw you guys, you know, here, now you have a second kid. Now what are you going to do? You're going to throw the first one out into the desert and nearly kill him. But that, I don't think that was his intention. But it bears mentioning that Ishmael is still a much better name and a lot more befitting for a prophesized child who will go on to become the father of multiple nations. So God has clearly changed his mind here, but apparently his contempt for these two matches my own up to this point. At which point, I just gotta say, pretty based. As for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. And you can read all about this in this book spin-off series, The Quran, which is approximately 50 years off or something from this point, or something like that, to the pace that we're currently going. And next time we do this, it's going to get even slower. In that one, we're only going to cover about 3 chapters, just because there's so much to go over in 19. Specifically 19. 18 and 20 are fairly short discussions, but 21. Let's get that to the top of the page. Don't go too far away. There you go. That's barely on the page, but whatever. That'll work. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. And he left off talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male according to the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the selfsame day as God said unto him. So this line demonstrates that while the Israelites, who aren't even really known as the Israelites at this point, are still slumming it up in a tent city in the land of Canaan, which is supposedly going to be theirs someday. Like, seriously, El, what's taking so long? They still have slaves separate from the ones Abram essentially stole from Pharaoh. Abram couldn't, excuse me, I'm calling him Abram and it is Abraham now. Abraham couldn't be bothered to learn exactly how long people live up to this point, but he sure was paying attention to chapter 9. In any case, what I want to touch up on here is why exactly these guys are getting the snip. Abraham and Ishmael make sense since they are pretty discerningly in the covenant of God, even though Ishmael is being downgraded to a booby prize. These guys should be ethnically Egyptian, though, and really have no reason to believe in Abraham's God. And I realize that they probably got the cut because they're just that, slaves and servants, so they're beholden to their master's will. But that doesn't... But, I mean, doesn't that really mean that they are being circumcised to bring them into God's covenant, despite the fact that they don't even believe in that same God? So the line gets a little bit weird here. Are they integrated into the covenant despite the conflict of their difference of faith? Or are they just, are they just being emasculated for whatever reason? Who knows? Everything is cryptic. That's why we have this series, to try and make it not quite so cryptic. 1724. And we skip way past that. Thank you so much, PDF. Oh my God, I hate this thing. This is why we can't have nice things. Well, YouTube is also part of the reason why we can't have nice things, but this okay, it's to the end of the chapter. It's whatever. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Thank you for specifying where. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Again, don't want to miss the mark. Don't want to circumcise his butt or something like that. I don't even know how that would work, but yeah, sure. In the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son. And all the men of his house, those born in the house, those bought with the money of a foreigner, were circumcised with him. Okay, so let's end off today's discussion with a little more facts about circumcision. Yay! This is exactly what every Messiahs mythology viewer tunes in for. Traditionally, the ceremony in which a young boy is circumcised is performed by his father in the middle of a crowded room with people chanting some sort of Hebrew prayer as he cut the little nibber's junk off with a knife. But it's the modern day now, boomer. Nowadays, the circumcision ritual, known as Brit Milah, is performed by a specialist called a Mohalim, who, so far as I can tell, is allowed to only know this one very specific procedure and nothing else. They just take a surgical clamp and some general aesthetic, and the procedure is relatively painless, though they do keep a group of family members and a clergy in the same room who chant around a naked baby, so that's all still pretty weird. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, if you do this the traditional way, which is just hand a knife off to dad and say, go nuts with it, traditionally, there's only 2 candles lit in the entire room. That's your only source of light to work with. So, I can imagine that there were quite a few accidents that resulted from that. But I digress. So anyway, let's see here. We have a few more comments to go. Let me get rid of this banner real quick. If anybody has any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. As of right now, we'll go ahead and address those really quickly before we end off today's stream. So K9 says, kind of like how don't eat shellfish rule in the Bible is kind of ignored by most seafood consumers nowadays. Yes. Also, though, like if you look like really anally into like Deuteronomy and like Leviticus and stuff like that, there's a lot of doctrines that people who are self-proclaimed to be extremely pious don't follow. Like, you're only supposed to grow like one sort of vegetable in your garden. You're only supposed to wear clothes made of like 100% one specific material at any given time. They're don't cut the sides of my head, you know, that sort of thing. As far as I can tell, the Amish try to stay faithful to those, you know, laws, but for like the layman, a lot of that stuff just kind of gets swept under the rug. Like the biggest thing I ever see from apologists is just like, well, you know, things became different after Jesus died on the cross for our sins, which not really. I mean, if you look at like the preachings of Jesus, he was a pretty staunch Jewish conservative. I'm gonna say that. It's gonna be a pretty stretched out piece of skin at 99 years old. Yeah. That fun fact, the Abraham's foreskin was actually used by Dido to cover the land of Carthage in northern Africa. And she had a relatively easy time getting all of the lands from that. Jim Norton has a bit about Jewish circumcision. It's pretty hilarious. I strongly recommend watching it. Maybe I will go ahead and check that out. All right. So that looks to be, barring any last minute questions popping up, that looks to be the end of today's stream. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Next time, we are going to be covering, like I said before, Genesis 18, 19, and 20. That one we're going to keep relatively brief just because I actually... Genesis 19 was actually the chapter in which I found out that there is actually a character limit to the comments that I can leave in my own PDF. So when we do that one, eventually, I don't know when we're actually going to be able to get around to it. But when we do that one, don't be surprised if I hold on a specific passage and I just talk about that for like an hour straight. There's a lot to cover. Don't worry. This one is a little bit of a longer episode, again, just because I had my little rant about YouTube not resolving my issues effectively. But yeah, if you are still tuned in and watching, be sure to email them, let them know that their system is broken. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you all next time. And with that, my name is Messiahs of Mythology, and I hope you all have a God's blessed day.